there's been rumors circulating all week that a rematch between Manny Pacquiao and Tim Bradley is pretty much a done deal to take place in April. Bob Arum even came out and said the fight is more or less done. They're just crossing the T's, dotting the I's, etc., etc. But then I read this article on FightHype.com. Now, I know a lot of people have reservations about FightHype.com. I'm not saying it's the most credible website, but take it as you want to take it. In this article on FightHype.com, they claim that their sources who are close to Tim Bradley, their sources have told them that Bob Arum is trying to force Tim Bradley into signing a new contract or extending his existing contract with Top Rank. And if he don't sign a new contract or extend his contract, then there's going to be no Pacquiao rematch. Now, to me, that makes sense that they would do something like that. The first fight was controversial. Most people felt that Pacquiao won. Even a lot of Pacquiao's rivals felt that Pacquiao won the fight. I mean, you got people like Floyd Mayweather Sr. coming out and saying that Pacquiao won the fight. So the majority of people felt like Pacquiao won, but it was a controversial decision. It was a controversial fight. And it was an awkward fight for Pacquiao. Even though I felt Pacquiao won the fight fairly comfortably, it was still an awkward fight. He definitely didn't look at his best in that fight. He definitely didn't land the kind of clean punches that we're used to seeing him land. He definitely struggled with Tim Bradley's boxing ability and with his defense. He did struggle with that. Even though, like I say, most people felt he did enough to win fairly comfortably, he still didn't look great in there. The possibility that Tim Bradley could do better in the rematch, I think, is a very real possibility. Now, this is not a prediction video or anything like that. I'm not saying that that's what I think is going to happen. I'm just talking speculatively. It's not beyond the realms of possibility that Tim Bradley could do better in a rematch and maybe win legit next time. It's possible, right? So do you really think that Bob Arum wants something like that to happen, for Tim Bradley to beat Pacquiao and then sail off into the sunset after beating Pacquiao again and go and join Golden Boy possibly? Do you think Bob Arum wants that? Obviously not. If he's going to put Bradley in there with Pacquiao, he definitely wants options on Bradley should Bradley win the fight. Definitely. So I'd be surprised if this is not true, to be honest with you. Regardless what you think about FightHype.com, I'd be surprised if this particular story isn't actually accurate. I'd be very surprised. I think Bob Arum would definitely do something like that, and he will want options on Tim Bradley should he face Pacquiao again. Now, personally, I think that Tim Bradley, if that's the case, and if Bob Arum refuses to let him fight Pacquiao unless he signs a contract extension or you know, another contract, I would hope that Tim Bradley don't sign another contract with Bob Arum. And the reason why I say that is because there's more fights to be made with Golden Boy right now around that weight class. If he stays with Bob Arum, who the hell is there? There's a rematch with Provodnikov, there's Mike Alvarado, there's Brandon Rios, there's Marquez again, there's Pacquiao. There's very few guys to fight with Top Rank around that weight division at the moment. So I think it would be much better, much more beneficial for Tim Bradley if he crossed over and joined Golden Boy. And his contract apparently is up very soon with Top Rank. So he's going to be a free agent pretty soon. Does he really want to sign himself into another long-term deal with Bob Arum? I would hope that he don't. Because as I said, there's much better options for him with Golden Boy. But the lure of a second fight with Pacquiao, I'm sure he's been offered a lot of money for the second fight with Pacquiao. Bob Arum has already come out and said, pay-per-view wise, the Bradley rematch is going to be bigger than the first Bradley Pacquiao fight because there was so much controversy surrounding the first fight. And since then, Bradley's gone on to be in a war with Provodnikov and he's gone and beat Marquez. So his market value has risen. Bradley's still not a big star or anything like that, but he's certainly a lot bigger and he's certainly a lot more well known than he was going into the first Pacquiao fight. So Bob Arum is basically saying, in a roundabout way, that Bradley does deserve a lot more money this time around than he did in the first fight. So will Bradley be able to resist the temptation of the kind of money he's being offered for the Pacquiao rematch? Because if he goes over to Golden Boy, if he can't get a Mayweather fight, who's he going to fight? That's going to generate the kind of money that he would get facing Pacquiao. I mean, there's good fights for him. Don't get it confused. And as a fan, there's much more interesting fights for him outside of Pacquiao and Mayweather. There's much more interesting fights for him than there is with Top Rank. You know? So from a fan's perspective, I'd like to see him join Golden Boy. But the lure of that money against Pacquiao, that's guaranteed money. But then he's locked into a long-term contract, allegedly, if he does fight Pacquiao. It's a dilemma for Big Tim. It's a dilemma. Let me know how you feel about it. Do you think Tim should go into the rematch with Pacquiao? Maybe he can negotiate the length of the contract down a bit for the Pacquiao rematch. Maybe he can negotiate it down to maybe a year extension or something like that. Something reasonable, which would make it worthwhile, rather than a certain number of fights that he has to stay for. So, you know, who knows? Let me know how you feel about it. Do you think that Pacquiao against Tim Bradley is going to go ahead? Or do you think that this situation, this alleged situation behind the scenes, is going to be a stumbling block and Pac's going to have to look for a different opponent? Me personally, I still believe that there are serious negotiations going on behind the scenes between the Pacquiao people and the Mayweather people, despite what they've come out and said. Oh, you know, we're going to put it on the back burner. Can't see Pacquiao fighting Mayweather for now. Despite all that, I personally believe that that's all just a smokescreen. And I think behind the scenes, there is serious negotiations going on for Pacquiao against Mayweather. And as we know, both guys are set to fight in the near future. Pacquiao's obviously fighting in April and Mayweather in May. But I think that, and this is just wild speculation on my behalf, but this is just my gut instinct based on what I've seen. I think that there is negotiations going on behind the scene between the two camps, and that is the reason why it's taking so long for both guys to come to an agreement for their next fights. Mayweather still hasn't announced his next opponent, despite the fact that he said he would announce his opponent this week, but he hasn't. Why is that? I personally think they're negotiating a Pacquiao fight behind the scenes, and the Pacquiao fight may not happen before the summer, but even if the fight is being negotiated for September, they may want to sort out any complications that may arise if, let's say, Pacquiao loses to Bradley or Mayweather loses to his opponent in May. No one wants to lose out on a big September payday. So that could be a potential stumbling block in terms of a Mayweather-Pacquiao contract negotiation. So again, it's just wild speculation on my behalf, but that's my gut instinct, man. I think there's something going on behind the scenes, and I think there really is a possibility of Mayweather-Pacquiao happening this year, particularly in September, and I think that is playing a part in the delay that we're seeing for Pacquiao and Mayweather to announce their next fights. I think that's playing a major part. I might do a separate video on that, you know, just to clarify it a little bit. So anyway, drop your comments below. Let me know how you feel about everything I've discussed in this video. This is Hatman. I'm out.